Thank you so much for joining us tonight for the 2019 MLK celebration dinner. We're so happy to have you here and celebrating the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. To help us kick off our night and our celebration, on behalf of President Fuller, please help me welcome Dr. Cassidy Cassidy, the Dean of the Liberal Arts and Sciences.
And I just wanted to say a few quick words. I am actually old enough to remember when Dr. King was still alive. I'm barely old enough, but I'm also young enough to have grown up with his words as part of our curriculum in school. And I have a dream speech, something we studied, and even Letter from Birmingham Jail was something that I often taught because it's one of the most beautifully constructed arguments. And I used to teach argumentative writing, and it is really the piece of argumentative writing. So I thought I knew a lot about Dr. King. And then a few years ago, I had a chance to visit the King Center in Atlanta. And I was going through that facility, which if you haven't had a chance to go, you should. I was really amazed at how little I knew and how much more there is to know about him and how many more great things he had to say besides the words that we're almost familiar with. And I was thinking this afternoon about this event and about how all the values that he stood for seem to be under attack right now, and what, how frankly depressing it is sometimes for those of us who care about what he stood for at this moment in history. And so I was looking through, I had bought a stack of postcards when I was at the King Center with quotes that I liked. And I was looking through them and I found this one that I thought is really pertinent at this time in history. Forces that threaten to negate life must be challenged by courage, which is the power of life to affirm itself in spite of life's ambiguities. This requires the exercise of a creative will that enables us to hew a stone of hope from a mountain of despair. And I thought that's a very important reminder that we're not living in easy times, but neither was he. And he had the courage to act anyway, and that's what we all need to do as well. So I know we're all looking forward to a very thought-provoking and enjoyable evening with our keynote speaker and delicious dinner. So I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in putting this event together, particularly Melissa for emceeing. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Gary Dukes, our Vice President of Student Affairs, who will introduce the winner of our ML King essay contest. Thank you.
So this year we asked students to reflect on the following quote by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King from a sermon on February 27, 1967 in San Francisco. Modern man suffers from a kind of poverty of the spirit, which stands in glaring contrast to a scientific and technological abundance. We've learned to fly the air like birds. We've learned to swim the seas like fish, and yet we haven't learned to walk the earth as brothers and sisters. So now I'd like to call up our Student Essay Award winners, and then I'm going to call them up kind of in reverse order, and the first place winner will then actually read her essay. So in third place, we have Liana Mohammed. We have Claire Graves. And then finally in first place, we have Natalie Gomez.
The title of my essay is No te rindes la primera caída, which means don't give up on the first try. You will not tell my mother to go back where she came from, for her life has been dug deep into the soil of America. Her roots seep their way down into the prosperity of what was being offered to her, grasping the opportunities that most wouldn't even notice. The kind of opportunities that granted her and us the life that we deserved. The kind of life that you have, and the kind of life that Americans hold clenched to their chest. A life built on dreams, and a life built on privilege. America is the place of prosperity, where lives are grown and hope is nurtured. There is a kind of understanding when you're a so-called minority. You begin to learn of the battle that came before you, the scars that are painted across the backs of the leaders that fought in the continuing war for equality. Martin Luther King Jr. was the general. MLK's message was first introduced to me as a young child, and that was, there shouldn't be a divide within racial or economical groups, that there's a simplicity in accepting people as they are. He paved the way for racial equality and for the decimation of segregation. He once said, modern man suffers from a kind of poverty of the spirit which stands in glaring contrast to a scientific and technological abundance. We've learned to fly the air like birds, we've learned to swim the seas like fish, and yet we haven't learned to walk the earth as brothers and sisters. This particular quote rings true today, maybe more so than even MLK would have imagined. Society has come so far in science and technology. However, my mother and I cannot walk down the street without sideways glares or stares for using our Spanish. Growing up, my tongue was in love. As strange as that sounds, in love with Spanish, bound to her, and this was the same for most people in my LA community. We all embraced our culture and held our values dearly. Our mothers raising us to believe there is a good in the world, but not to take down our walls, for all the good in the world couldn't drown out the racism, the prejudice, or the malice. As time passed and age ripened me, I realized that I was different, not in myself, but from the standpoint of my culture. The term Beaner rang in my ears like nails on a chalkboard, for something was made very clear to me, not for my own doing, that I was brown. Labeled like a crayon, I wasn't the only one, for our entire folk was labeled just a Crayola box of pure brown crayons. We stuck together like brothers and sisters, having respect in the fact that we were one, because we didn't care for the color of our skin or the money in our pockets. And we should do as MLK once did, for our state of peace has been disrupted once again. We need the courage that King's memory and legacy holds. He gives us strength to fight back, to rally, to speak. He gives us the strength to have courage. The message is clear. We are here on this abundant earth to make a difference and to speak out against the disproportions of society. We need to have a tough mind, but a tender heart. Enough so that we realize we are the future. We hold that picture of what is acceptable. And what should be acceptable is everyone from every walks of life. There are too many problems in our lives to be blinded by the unprompted hatred for one another.
I get the pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, who I just got to meet a little bit ago, and I feel like we've already kind of connected, and I'm like, all right, you're stuck with me long term. Christopher Coleman. At birth, after miraculously being brought back to life, doctors initially told Christopher Coleman's parents he would live his life confined to a bed, a wheelchair, and his own body. He was initially diagnosed mentally and physically disabled. 45 years later, Christopher has defied the odds. He has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Technical and Professional Communications, a certification in Human Behavior, a certification of Diversity and Inclusion, along with a certification in Life Coaching. Christopher is known as America's unconfined keynote speaker, diversity and inclusion expert, life coach, and author. He is the founder and the CEO of Unconfined Life Institute, a nonprofit dedicated to leading the world out of the box. In 2013, Christopher published his first book, named Solitary Refinement, a 31-day journey to personal freedom. In 2015, he released his autobiography called No Longer Confined, detailing his personal journey towards freedom. In 2017, Christopher completed his third book, Diversity plus Inclusion equals Emotional Intelligence times Rational DNA. I was giving him a hard time that he made me do math. The science behind diversity and inclusion. For over 20 years, Christopher has presented to many colleges, universities, and corporations around the world. Today, Christopher is here to challenge us to live our lives beyond expectations. Please help me give a warm welcome to Christopher Coleman.
Good afternoon. And my microphone. Can you hear me right in the back? You ready? Awesome. It is so good to be here with you. And I am excited to be sharing my message on living above expectations. And in order to let you know why I picked the topic, I want to give you a little background about my life. I was pronounced dead at birth, so the doctor did not expect me to start breathing for 15 minutes. But after 15 minutes of no oxygen to my brain, doctor did not expect me to move, walk, or talk. Think about it. 15 minutes without any oxygen to my brain. One of my best friends said one day, Christopher, I can do anything you can do, and I can do it better. I'm like, oh yeah? Don't breathe for 15 minutes. But I went to a school for what they call the mentally disabled. And no one there thought I knew what was going on around me. But I knew everything that was going on around me. So they did not expect that I was going home and teaching myself how to read. And they did not expect that 15 years later, they will find out that I was actually reading and writing on the 9th grade level. They put me in high school, and some of the teachers did not want me to be in the classroom because they were uncomfortable with having the first disabled student in the class. And they did not expect me to graduate top 5 of my class with a 4.1 GPA. No one expected me to move from Baton Rouge, Louisiana to Atlanta, Georgia, and become the first college graduate in my whole family. And when I talk about my whole family, I don't mean a little family. He said, my mom is one of 16 kids. Everybody in our family has 7 or more kids. And I was the only college graduate in my family. And then no one expected me, including myself, to start speaking around my country and travel all over this country, giving presentations and talking to thousands of people and changing people's lives. So, when I think about Martin Luther King, I think about what he would want us to do at this time in history. And I think he would want us to rise above other people's expectations of us. I think he would want us to raise up a little bit higher in our seats and live our life with dignity and proud of who we are. So I started to prepare for this speech. And when you start to prepare for MLK speech, the first thing you do is you find a speech that you can relate to. And so the first speech I look at was, I've been to the mountaintop. And I love that speech, but the truth is, as a partner in the South, every time I get to a mountain top, I find that someone knocks me down a couple of feet. So that really didn't work for me. So I went on to the next beach. I have a dream. And to be honest with you, with a person being a person with a limitation, I'm not encouraged to dream that much in a month. At best, we hope that my true potential will one day be seen, but I wasn't encouraged to dream for a long time. So I moved to the next beach, and that was, you might love one. And I'm a member of the LGBT community. I don't have the freedom to love like I want. So that didn't work with me either. But I kept reading and reading. And I found a piece that he wrote in Los Angeles, June 17, 1964. And the piece is the dilemma and the challenge. And I really like that piece because he said the dilemma is the demand of history required that we be as productive, as resourceful, as responsible as the people who never had these gifts and abundance. And then he said, the challenge is the one who get behind in the race must forever remain behind and run faster than the man in front of them. You can see, even though we have been discriminated against and segregated against, we still have to pay our own bills, pay our own way. We still have to be responsible for our actions, and we still have to be productive citizens in America, even though we face much discrimination and much segregation. That's the dilemma. That's the challenge. That dilemma and challenge once was for only black people. But today, the dilemma and challenge is for all colored people. It's for disabled people. It's for the LGBT community. It's for women. It's for Asian people. We all have to rise up to the dilemma of, are we on one or are we on remain behind? Are we on live up to people's expectations? Or are we on rise above it and be the people that we know we are called TV. I got to say this. I got to say this. If I had not graduated from college, I didn't teach myself how to read. I never went to high school. I never did anything more than sit in my wheelchair for the rest of my life. No one would blame me. That would be okay. That he's doing what he's supposed to. But I don't want to do what I'm supposed to do. I want to do what I'm created to do. I want to be above. I want to live my life above the low expectations that this country put on me as a man of God, as a disabled man, or as a member of the GMB community. So, what do it mean? Dr. King said, if America wants to be a first-class nation, we can have second-class citizens. To write about application and to understand that freedom is a galaxy choice. And not just are you free. It's about the way you carry yourself. It's about who you are as an individual. Freedom is a galaxy choice. Yes. We cannot conduct ourselves as certain class citizens. Character is reaction to your circumstance. You know, I was born black. I was born disabled. Believe it or not, I was born gay. But I was also born free. But people are also born free. But because I'm black, some people expect me to talk a certain way. Because I'm a person with a limitation, some people expect me to think like I have an intellectual disability. Because I'm gay, some people expect me to act a certain way. But those same people don't expect me to act like I'm sick. But those same people don't expect me to act like I'm sick. They expect me to act like all of it, but don't act like you live in a free country because you're black, you're disabled, you're gay, you this, you that. But we want to be first class citizens. We must act like first class citizens. That we cannot let our circumstances dictate our character. When your character goes beyond your situation, we are living the life that no one expects us to live. and no one can prevent us from living. Number two, to rise above expectations, we must embrace who we are. We cannot allow ourselves to be treated like second class citizens. We can only be who we are, and at some point, that has to be enough. Now, I'm going to get a little break right now and tell you, I don't know of it because I'm older now, but I realize something. I don't need anyone's permission to be me. I don't need anybody's permission to be me. We as people, for some reason, we need approval to be who we are created to be. And I want to tell you that a lot. I don't need nobody's kind of approval to be put up beyond God. We don't need anyone's approval to be who we are as people of color, as allies, as women, as people in the LGBT community, as people with limitations. I don't need your approval. I just don't. I wrote in my notes. What that means that we have to be okay with knowing that very few people will recognize the greatness within us. We have to be okay with that. When I came out, I was talking to a guru in marketing. He worked for a very big and well-known company across the nation. And he said, Chris, your career is over. Now that you're out, no one will hire you. No one will want you to come and be at the school or the organization. Your career is over. I'm like, oh yeah. I believe you don't know who I am. Because I'm a king at using who I am to build my career. I made a big part by being who I am. Ready that I'm going to go, but I'm 100% who I am. Well, 5 years later, I'm still trying to go over, come right out here to, where am I? What moment is giving a speech? Because I realize that I know who I am. I don't need anyone's approval to be a first class citizen. Listen to me. Nothing or no one can shape your life like you can. At the end of the day, you're the one that shapes your life. I was telling dancing, oh, very good. Listen to me, I love it. I love it. We cannot choose our circumstances, but we can show what we do with our circumstances. We shape our lives by the door we allow to open and close. The best decision that we can make in this time of history is to embrace who God made us to be. Every day, I'm learning every day that the more I embrace who I am, the more doors are open in my life. We have to make a decision to embrace who we know we are, not the preconceived notions of other people. I'm gonna repeat that. We have to make a decision to embrace who we are, not the preconceived notions of other people. And that's a bigger issue than you think. Especially in that day, we tend to conform to whatever someone has said we are. Or someone says you're disabled and you can't get out the table. I'm not disabled. I'm not, I can't, I'm gonna tell you why. Disability. A car is disabled. It's on the side of the road. This function not working. I don't live my life this function. Matter of fact, I work every day. I'm always on my work. I'm always doing something. I have a limitation, yes, but I will not accept the label disabled because I'm able to do anything I set my mind to. So my next point in my life, to rise above expectations, you must remove the labels. And that is the most important. We cannot be confined to the expectation of a certain kind of citizen. We cannot live in truth without identifying a lack. And I go back to what I'm saying. When somebody comes disabled, I'm not disabled. Maybe you are, but I'm not. I am doing what I want to do. I'm almost there. Oh, I'm doing good. The label you live in, a mode you must fit into. What you accept as a label becomes your identity. Listen to me. What you accept as a label becomes your identity. You are confined and molded into that label that you allow people to put on. Listen to me. I'm going somewhere with this. The reason why we must remove the label is so important because it puts equality into perspective. We must be careful about the label we put on ourselves and because it put equality into the perspective. More of us live under one or two labels. I'm talking about right down the middle. Most of us live under one or two labels. You know what that label is? Inferior or something. To rise above expectation. We might come to an understanding that something is, that if something is done as said, that it evokes emotion, and that's it because we feel either inferior or something. Let me say that a different way. If I say something to you and it invokes any type of emotion, whether it's happy or sad or angry, it's because we are living under the label we are either feeling inferior or something. Now, vote on the result. I'm not feeling equal. I feel superior to you or inferior to you. I do not feel equal. I'm telling you that 90%, 99% of the world we either feel inferior or something we don't feel equal. Vote cause make it problem like pride and low self-esteem. If we are feeling inferior, we tend to make up for it by trying to please someone or by propping up who we are. If we are feeling self-care, we tend not to feel and feel entitled. Equality, I love it. Equality is understanding that no one in the universe is more important than you are, and no one in the universe is less important than we are. And can we read that together? Because I really want that to get an awesome. Can we read that together? You talk. And then, you one, amen. That equality. Okay, I'm about to wrap it up. But I want to wrap it up a little bit different. I want to tell you something. I want to tell you the secret to overcoming the dilemma and the challenge that we have. What the dilemma? Do anybody remember what the dilemma is? What the dilemma? Can we go back to that? the dilemma and the demand of history required to be as productive as responsible as responsible as the people who never had the disadvantage. The challenge, and the bottom of the challenge is, the challenge is the one who get behind the way must forever remain behind. I want fast something. How are we gonna do it? How are we gonna do it? And I believe I got the secret. So I'm gonna show it to you. I do that all over the country when people ask me all the time, what are you doing? I thought you were gonna fall. I thought you were gonna get up and walk. What are you doing? Listen, I'm getting out of my bed. I'm getting out what the world tries to use to confine me. I'm getting out the preconceived notion of someone that lives in a wheelchair. We all got wheelchairs, don't we? It might not be a physical wheelchair, but we got wheelchairs that the world has placed in our lives. We got wheelchairs from our past, from the label of being a Hispanic human, or black human, or disabled human, or white human, and we found ourselves confined to that label, confined to that wheelchair. I'm gonna tell you, we all meet the challenge of today's world. We gotta get out of that wheelchair. We gotta get our mind, our heart, our emotions out of that wheelchair. We gotta stop the wheelchair of, I may get myself into trouble with it, but I'm okay with that. You got the tip, right? Get ready. Let me say a different one. I don't want equality because I'm black. I don't want equality because I'm disabled. I don't want equality because I'm a member of the LGBT community. I want equality because I'm human. Because I'm human. Because I was born in America. I was born in the world where we all are created equal. I want equality because I'm a human being. And so what I'm trying to say, we are top fighting for equality for our own behalf. Because if we want the disabled to be free, we want the LGBT community to be free. We all have to come together and want equality for everybody, regardless of what label you have to deal with. Everyone in the country and the world deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. I believe MLK Martin Luther King. You are here right now on the stage. He will be fighting for equality for every American, for everyone that wake up today in the country. He would say we all deserve the same rights. And he would say, we don't want some of our rights. We want all of our rights. He would say, we don't want some of them later. We want them out now. He would say, we don't want rights for the rights of the black, of the Japanese. We want our rights as a human race. That's what I believe in my country. But in order to get there, we have to rise above the expectations of people in the community. We have to show them that we are better than what they are expecting. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and share. I got 5 minutes. I want to use my 5 minutes. Right, 5 minutes, right? 4 minutes. So I want to open it up for questions.
It seems to me, and to get back to something you said, and would you comment on it? Seems like Dr. K, Dr. MLK, and civil rights movement, we made progress. We made some progress. We had the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act. Before that, took a bite out of the segregation, discrimination. It made sure that people could vote and could assert some political power. We're seeing finally a House of Representatives where women and minorities finally, again, let us say, are asserting themselves. But it seems to me we're still fighting. In many ways, we're still fighting the same battle in 2019 that Dr. MLK was fighting mostly in the 1960s, as you well know. It's still a terrible struggle for equality. Political equality, economic equality, educational equality. We're the only country in the world that drives our students into $1.2 trillion worth of debt. I'm concerned that I think it's difficult for low-income people and minorities to even get into school, to stay in school. The job market is very weak, despite this BS we hear from the White House. But I keep thinking of equality, and I'm concerned. I'm getting old. I'm concerned that we're not moving forward. Maybe we're moving backward again. And I'm being long-winded, but I'd love to have your thoughts on all of that.
Well, I believe that we are thankful because we don't realize that equality is a holistic movement. It's not that a movement for the black or for the gay. Until we can all come together and fight for that thing together, then we'll never reach it. But we gotta come together and not just about you and me. Disabled person gotta fight for the right of a color person. A color person had to fight for the right of a disabled person. We all got to get in there and put one bit put for equality for all. For all. Equality for all.
You said we need to stop treating ourselves and acting like second-class citizens. If I know many people, like people of color or anybody who is marginalized, struggles at times with shame. How do you propose people fight that and fight against shame and fight to be proud of who they are?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Shame, thoughts, and fear. I mean, you can cut me out, you can cut me out, kind of, but I'm not secure with who I am, then that is gonna get to me. But when I know who I am as a black man, a gay black disabled man, I could care less what you say. I'm secure in me. So let's talk with you. You gotta be okay with who you are. And let me testify, that's not easy. It took me 45 years to get to a point where I could care less about what someone thinks of me, but guess what I am? Duh. I could care less. And you have to get to a point where you know who you are, regardless of what anyone says about you.
Are there any contemporary leaders, authors, or artists that inspired you and that you would encourage us to read about?
But, to be honest, no. My hero, the woman with a sixth grade education that lived in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She raised 7 kids by herself in the project of New Orleans. You may never read about, but my mom, it was America to our mom. It's about doing what it takes to do what needs to be done. So I love you.
All right, so please help me give another appreciation to Christopher Coleman. So much to think about, take in. I'd like to just end the evening, and she won't love this, but just thanking Ana Hernandez Hunter, who is in the lobby, who made all this evening happen. And lastly, we'd like to thank all of you for being part of this evening celebrating Dr. King. The funds and the food donated this evening will directly benefit the Western Oregon University Food Pantry. It makes me think of just one of Dr. King's powerful quotes, of many. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. By Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.